Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our monthly Story Of, where we get the opportunity to learn about the story of an entrepreneur and the person behind the business. My name is Sierra Ladroma. I am the project manager for the Iowa Center's Women's Business Center. The Iowa Center's Women's Business Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will all receive a follow-up email after this event with a form to complete. Please do us a major favor and take some time to fill this form out. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Please also take some time right now to locate the chat function on your Zoom screens so you can join us with the conversation by asking questions or adding comments. Today's story is with Alyssa Wade. Alyssa is the founder and owner of Veggie Thumper. Veggie Thumper elevates consciousness through awareness by providing access to locally sourced organic plant-based cuisine. Alyssa, we are so excited and thankful to have you join us today.
Thank you.
How are you? What's good? Tell us about yourself.
I'm great. You know, it's just a sunny Thursday morning, a little cold for my liking, but it's December.
I have a bunch of questions for you.
Word.
And one of the questions is, what does Veggie Thumper mean, and how did you land on that name?
Oh, here we go. So Veggie Thumper, some people thump Bibles, some people thump veggies is the way to kind of describe that. There were, my mom is fairly religious, and some Jehovah's Witnesses were coming through for a while. One of them she used to teach with. And so it first started out like as a friend thing, and then they started talking about religion, and then you know how that story kind of goes sometimes. And so then a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses were here, which fine. But there were like 9 of them, and they wouldn't just be here like an hour. It would kind of go on longer. And so I had to get to juicing and making my smoothies for the day, because I would try and do it for 2 days at a time. And if you've ever juiced or smoothied before, it's kind of loud, especially when you're like grinding beets and parsnips, fennel and carrot. And so they started asking questions about what was going on and why the house smelled like, you know, fennel and beets. It smelled good, but it, you know, it's a unique scent. And so then they would start kind of trying some of my concoctions, and then they liked it. And then my sister took my mom to, I don't remember the name of the spot, but anyway, my mom really wanted a poor food choice, as I would call it. And so my sister was like, I'll take you to get fried chicken, but she's vegan too. So she took her to a vegan eatery, and my mom got a little upset about it. And then I guess they were talking about my overzealousness for adding vegetables to every dish, including breakfast. And my sister kind of said, well, you know, some people thump Bibles, some people thump veggies. Alyssa thumps veggies. And so that's the story that we're going with, even though there's other ways that we said it came along. But anyway, so then Veggie Thumper stuck. And so I went from Farmer Wade to Veggie Thumper.
Okay, I like that. That makes sense. I like it a lot. So I guess that leads me into my next question of, what is your favorite ever vegan dish that you've had?
Oh my gosh.
Take your time.
I don't know, because I don't really cook the same things over and over. Right now, I would say probably.
Or if it's like someone else, if you've gone somewhere else and had something that you really love.
I did have this chocolate cake at a place called Eden. I don't think they're around anymore, in Kansas City. It just happened to be, it was in the basement of a church, and not at all what I was expecting when I walked in, but they were almost closed, and it was like 15 minutes till they closed. So I was like, I'm not going to be that chicken stay. I can just get 4 pieces of cake to go. That would rock my world. So the guy just started laughing hysterically. So that one was pretty good. On my own account, it would be the Mac, or probably my new favorite, the Pizzone.
Yes, I'm waiting for that Pizzone.
I'm excited.
So why is it important to you to approach life with a holistic outlook?
Because it's easier for me to stay well and be healthy than to have to recover, I guess. And earth, I mean, just being closer to nature and the things that I care about that kind of saved me in a time when I needed saving. So I would rather do it in a holistic way, will you? In my crunchy lifestyle.
Yeah, It's nice because I mean, you've done that in your personal and business as well.
I try.
So this year has been really rough on small businesses, especially because of COVID-19 pandemic. What are some ways that you've been innovative in your business this year?
Implementing online orders. That was messy at first, but
was that something that you saw for yourself as a future goal, or was that like, we need to do this now because of this?
oh, I realized it needed to be done now because there was a problem and people were scared and I wasn't sure, you know, in the beginning, it was just like the media portrayed it as this. And so it was just like, I don't know what to do right now. And it seemed like that was how everybody else was shifting. And so I was like, okay, cool, we'll do that. I mean, I knew eventually as my growth plan was implemented, I would have to do something with an online order. I just didn't expect it to have to be like a 2-week process of figuring it out, throwing it together. And then the plan that I initially went with 2 days after I got everything live and going, I went to print an order and the app was gone. Like, and so I was like, oh no, I don't know. Wix had a feature you could add to your website for a restaurant. And so I had like been working on it in the background, but it had never published and gone live. And then when this happened, I published it and it went live. And it took forever to kind of figure it out because there's not much code with Wix, but a little bit. So that's kind of where my degree comes into play. And I'm like, okay, cool. Don't remember most of it, but I'm wading through the waters, getting it all set up. And then I don't know what happened. So I thought if I deleted the app and reinstalled it, you know, I thought it was like a glitch. Oh no, the app could not be found in the app store and they had removed it. So I don't know. I got an email about something they brought back the other day. I'm like, it's too late. I went with Square. So that it was just like trying to figure out how to sync everything. And at first it was very rocky because it was like, it didn't communicate super well, I should say. So it would print tickets or it would print like 6 tickets. And it's like, what's happening? And it was messy. And then remembering to hit the mark in progress and the mark is ready. And then not being able to have, it's geared for restaurants, not food trucks. And so then people will be like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, but I'm not there. Like I have to legally have an address to take credit card payments. But that's not my location today. So then I set up locations for everyone and then it didn't work. And then sometimes people order and it'll go to another location, but the iPad for the location where the menu I'm on for that day doesn't catch it. So I found that out over the Plantsgiving order. There were a couple, and luckily I'd made like a couple extra just in case I missed something with tickets. And that worked out because then people were like, I'm here. I'm like, who are you? Yeah. I don't have that ticket. Like, what's happening? Like, it's cool. We got the food, but I don't have that ticket. So it's been definitely a learning curve as far as implementing things on the fly and, you know, talking with Square, being like, hey, it would be really awesome if you offered this since you're offering that. Like, can we do this, this, and this to make it a little smoother? So there's definitely a lot of kinks in the system, or like people setting up a time when you're doing orders way in advance, but you're like, no, it's not for setting up a time. Like, I can't change that part. I'm sorry. I don't know. So there's glitches with it, but I'm grateful that it's something that I guess I had the ability to do and was fairly quickly done after some sleepless nights figuring it out and deleting the whole menu. The other day, right before Plantsgiving, I deleted everything and I thought I was just removing it from one area. Oh no, I deleted the entire thing. And so I had to go back in and like add all the pictures back, update everything. It was cool. Just to get another learning curve. It's like, it's 2020. I expect this. It's cancel culture. Yeah.
Just adjust constantly.
Yeah, constantly adjusting. But I'm grateful to be in a bus. That much I must say.
Yeah. So I want to come back to the bus question, but is there other ways that you have been innovative this year besides the online ordering?
You know, figuring out locations that have enough parking and that people can space out and that I feel comfortable, you know, walking into an establishment to use the restroom because I drink a lot of coffee and a lot of water, which probably doesn't go hand in hand with my line of career choices, but I pee a lot, not like you asked, but that's a thing. So there was having to think about those types of things and staffing, and then having to reel it in a little bit because then people were gravitating more towards food trucks. So it was like, there's no way possible I could make all this food and go out 5 days a week like we were doing before. I just couldn't physically or mentally keep up. So they're just, I was already pretty OCD on the sanitizing and cleaning tip. So that part just under the water, because I've seen restaurants, and if you don't stay on top of it, it's hard to catch up. Like, it's one of those things, if you don't keep it clean, if you let it go, it's not going to be fun to clean later. Yeah. So that part wasn't really ever an issue. So
someone had put in a question, and they had said it kind of in a sentence way of, I have been following your journey and the many obstacles where that you have faced, including like where you could park, equipment breaking, things like that. How do you stay motivated and focused to just keep going?
Because this is what I want. Like, I wanted to work for myself. I questioned it in the beginning. I was like, is this really my goal? Like, can I give up my whole life to food and a bus? And then when I'm not around the bus, I'm like, oh, I miss my bus. So, I'll go sit with the bus in the wintertime, when it wasn't out last year and stuff like that. And so it's just reminding yourself at the end of the day, like, you committed to this. This is what you want. And if you want to be successful, there are hurdles in every business. It could be worse. Like, yes, people are trying to play games right now, or they're not fixing things thoroughly, but life happens, and usually you come out stronger and you've learned something at the end of the day. So I'm always thankful for the experience, even though I may not be happy with the situation. I'm thankful for the experience to teach me something new. Like, when something breaks, like finding a bus parts manual, I'm geeking out over that thing. It's 1,120 pages, and it's a super vintage binder, but it's kind of cool to learn about your bus and where it came off of the production line and how to read a VIN number. And so there's just been things about every experience and headache that it's been a lesson in some way.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about the bus and why you chose to have Veggie Thumper in a bus, but then also just how you found it, how it became this vessel of passion for you.
A friend a while back, because when I would do pop-ups, I would rent a U-Haul because I have a tiny car. And so I would rent a U-Haul, have to pack it, and then try and get it back in time, the same day usually, or the next day. And it was a lot because it's so much stuff, and you didn't really think about how much stuff it was to have. And then as I was kind of like looking at other food trucks, I'm like, that just seems very claustrophobic. And so I was like, okay, a friend said something about getting a bus. It's like, you can usually find buses for a decent price. And I'm like, yeah, right. And so as the journey progressed, and I kept seeing like, wow, if this is how everything fits in a U-Haul. Granted, there was not always rhyme or reason to my 3 a.m. load times, but it made me think space. And so, as I started driving past buses, or you'd see a school bus go by and you're like, huh, I wonder. And then I happened to get on Craigslist, and people were selling buses, and one in Bagley, Iowa, for some reason stuck out. I don't know why. It just did. And so I hit the guy up, and we went back and forth, and then told my mom, hey, I was like, we need to go up to Bagley/Jefferson. I guess it's right on the cusp. And she's like, why? And I was like, I'm going to buy a bus. And she's like, no, you're not. It's like, yes, I am. So yeah, I found a mechanic to go with me, and I drove an hour and 30 minutes home on the interstate in a bus.
Okay. And it's been the bus ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 19 feet of kitchen space. So that's pretty great. I'll take it.
What do you think is next? Are you interested at all in having some sort of brick and mortar space? Do you get asked that a lot?
I do get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
I go back and forth in my mind. I'm like, I could see it someday. I would prefer the bus be attached to a brick and mortar, and then I can still be food truck and then restaurant when I want to be a restaurant. I don't think I would ever commit fully to a year-round restaurant. I think it's kind of where my head's at with that. I'm not saying it's never in the cards, but right now, definitely. Like, one time I thought about it a lot more. I'm like, I could, I maybe, and then this happened. I'm like, nah, fam, like, bus is great. Like, there's rent, but not like rent,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know eventually, but I wouldn't mind having more buses. I would love to have a fleet.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's incredible. I think you just saying basically, this is what's right for you right now.
Yeah.
And this
I'm
is
going
what
with
we're
the
gonna
flow.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I think a fleet of Veggie Thumper buses would be incredible.
I think so too. How fun would that be?
Have you ever thought about going, like doing a cross-country trip?
Not nothing.
No.
Nope.
Maybe later when the fleet is formed.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, it's a gas guzzler. The manual tells me I get about 4 miles to the gallon. So finding that out, I was like, ooh, I try and be so eco-friendly, and then I buy a bus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there's certain parts my footprint reduces. There's other parts, at least I'm not driving all over the greater Des Moines proper at the moment. That helps. I've only had to get gas 4 times this year as compared to every week and a half last year. So that's been definitely a budget saver.
Yeah, for sure. So what are your next phase dreams? Like what's coming up next for you that you're excited about?
We're rotating into grab and go style, so people will be able to pre-order and select some items that I offer and get those to go, because I really wanted to be able to retain some of my crew over the winter, because I know it's not hard to find a job to fill your time. And I love my crew. They're all a great bunch, and they're fun to be around. And during COVID, at least I get to have interaction with other humans, which outside of family. And so there's that coming up, more holiday dishes. And that way it gives me, I won't be taking the break I took last year, because last year I was able to do pop-ups in my commissary kitchen spaces. And obviously we're not doing pop-ups in there this year because of COVID. It doesn't really make sense to try and socially distance seat in there and all that type of stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully someday COVID will move on. I mean, I wonder what season 2 would have been like had there been events, now that we've grown a little bit and people aren't quite as scared of veganism and vegetables.
Yeah, that's a future question I have for you. The thing I want to ask now is, what have you seen an increase in the awareness that people have a Veggie Thumper this year, even with COVID, or has it kind of been the same in regards to business?
No, we've experienced a lot of growth. I mean, last year there were days that we would sit in a parking lot and hopefully do $100, and then there were days that, we would have a great lunch, but it wasn't always consistent. I can't say that it was sustainable last year, but I was always having fun. And as long as, my crew was paid and I wasn't, scraping together, I was okay with that. And my mom's like, that's not really a good business philosophy. I'm like, we'll grow. Eventually people will find out about us, because it's not like there's a cap to what I'm willing to pay to participate. It's kind of the way that I look at it. And since there's not a lot of the options, I also kind of at times feel like if you ask me to come to something and then you ask me to pay $2,000, chances are the answer is going to be no. That's rent. And I may or may not make it back. So there's been a lot of growth during COVID. I mean, Black Lives Matters also occurred at the same time, so that kind of helped. But then it's just people were bored and they were out and about, and then they see this bright rainbow veggie bus and they're like, what is that about? And like one lady came over and she's like, I can smell you all the way around the block. She's like, that is amazing. She's like, it was like following the smell. And she's like, so now I'm hungry. I'm like,
yes.
Great. What can we get for you?
That's excellent.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna jump into the chat here. We have some love for Eden Alley Cafe. And then Chris asks, where do you get your menu inspiration?
Either I'm hungry for something I've had from my past, or I see a picture and then I'm like, and maybe that picture isn't portraying what I'm about to make, but it gives me an idea for something that all of a sudden just flows. So I go in the kitchen and I play, and or I'll look at what I have on hand. And that's how a lot of Veggie Thumper stuff has come to be, is by looking in the fridge and it's like, what do we have in here? What's in my freezer? Or just being hungry for something.
What are your top hitters on your menu right now?
The nachos. Definitely the nachos. Everybody's like, nachos this, nachos that. Nacho basic vegan. What else? The Philly. the Frisco used to be up there pretty high, but it kind of goes back and forth. Like sometimes people are like, oh, okay, the Frisco. And then the next thing you know, Frisco. And so I love the Frisco personally. That's one of my favorites on the menu. But yeah, I would say definitely, yeah, the Philly and the nachos are probably the top hitters. But it all depends on location, because I know at Ace Hardware have burgers. Ace loves burgers for some reason.
Okay. So the other question in the chat is, the Frisco melt and the nachos. Okay. Frisco's amazing. Someone asked, is the Philly cheesesteak going to be on the grab and go option?
I believe it'll be done like the meat, and I'll prepare the peppers and stuff and the cheese sauce and the bread, and then you can assemble it on your own at home. So that's kind of how some of the things I'm thinking will run. Is it Purple Carrot? I don't know, one of those meal grab and go type you order and they dump a bunch of stuff off at your doorstep. It'll be kind of like that. So I'll provide, a lot of the food, but like sometimes, like if I'm running tacos or something, I'll let you guys get your own tomatoes and lettuces and stuff like that, or maybe the shells, but the heart of it'll be done and the sauces and stuff will be with it. And then you guys get to pretend you're me and heat it up at home.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of places doing something like that right now because it keeps it fresh, right? It reminds me of the Des Moines Ramen Club, and that's how they're doing their orders.
Okay.
You get all of your things and you put it together at home, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Okay, next question. How have you seen the diets of Iowans change over the years, and those seeking vegan options and those accepting the vegan lifestyle?
Gosh. I guess it's harder for me to say how I've seen the change, because I used to work in a restaurant. Now I just, I'm on a bus, so I don't really see what others are eating. And sometimes if I do see it, I choose not to see it because I don't want to see that. It's not helping you thrive. But overall, I've seen more openness. A lot of people that typically wouldn't have tried it, they're like, well, somebody says I need to try this, so I'm here trying it. Or it smelled good or it looks good. And I know a lot of time, if something looks good, you can convince, someone to eat it. Like my kid, for instance, he was a headache, when he was younger, you're trying to get him to eat some of the food. But if it looked right, then he was okay with it. So it's more so people are opening up to change. They're trying new things. And a lot of times, like, that's the only thing I really despise about lids. Because it used to be people would take their food past somebody else. They'd be like, you do the head turn. You're like, I just got food envy. What's that? I want it. So with a lid on, you don't really get to experience that. And plus lids are kind of wasteful, but I deal with it. So I don't know. I think eventually more people will come on board, but some people have had negative, vegan experiences or vegetarian experiences. And I fully understand that. I've had disappointed face before and I'm like, not the goal. That would have been my first time. Like I probably never would have gone back. So yeah, I get it.
Cool. Someone in the comments says Frisco is amazing and they are not vegan.
Whoop, whoop. Welcome.
When you first started, or I guess even now, have people discouraged you for your business model for being strictly vegan?
Yeah.
Versus like the good old Iowa food?
Yeah, I mean, initially people weren't supportive of the idea. I think some people thought when it switched over from vegetarian to vegan that, it was a fad, it wouldn't last. Or even when I went vegetarian, some people didn't think it would really last. Or they would say, well, if that's your plans on, sustaining yourself, I would find another avenue of business and blah, blah, blah. And I was always okay with it. I'm like, you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, but I've always been that hard-headed. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if it doesn't work out, at least I tried. And so, yeah, kind of like when my parents were like, you're not getting your tongue pierced. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am.
It's happening.
And then, learning the hard way. Okay, maybe it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be, but I did it. It happened. So yeah. Here we are, about a bus, vegan is happening. And really it's more to me about showing people a different experience and hopefully that one that they'll enjoy. And then they'll look at, maybe trying to implement something a little different or looking at food differently after they've had such experience. Because at one point I never saw myself living without meat. People would be like, vegans and vegetarians would be like, what is that? And then the more I started reading it, I'm like, oh my God, they put what in the food? Like, no, like, you're kidding. We're good. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Vegan free.
What are some pieces of advice that you could give someone or to all of us who want to go towards the vegetarian lifestyle, maybe the vegan lifestyle? Like, what are some small steps to get there?
Remove what you learned in your childhood.
Do a lot of unlearning.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like, well, when I was a kid, but you're not a kid anymore. You're 50. Try something new. Like, yes, asparagus from a can. I remember that mushy mess.
Oh,
it was not okay. Asparagus in a can?
No.
You're lucky.
I probably won't.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. So I do remember, that, and like certain, what are those canned corn, those little mini corns? I never did gravitate with those. I don't know why. There's something weird in their aftertaste and the way they felt on my tongue. So I don't know. I'm texture based, but it's just helping people to realize that your childhood experiences should not be the end game. You should try something new, or maybe steaming veggies isn't your thing, because there's an art to that. If you oversteam it, you get mush. Try, pan searing or roasting, or the new fad is air frying. And yes, canned peas. Hey, wow. Yes. Okay, I'm not going to start reading all that, or I'm going to get sidetracked really interesting.
Yeah, they said
no. Yeah, no, canned peas are not my favorite. Frozen peas, however. So it's just kind of getting people to approach food with a different outlook, that cheap and easy isn't always better. And, you do get what you're paying for. Like, yeah, I could go to Walmart and buy a bunch of processed food and throw it together. But at the end of the day, like, what is the long-term outcome going to be for me paying for more chemicals and the things that are going into your food? So it's just kind of opening up your mind to a new experience and trying it out versus looking at it negatively before you've even started. Because if you automatically go into a situation like, this is going to suck and blah, 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 you're right. Because that's what you're dead set on it being. But if you go into it like with an open mind, like, this could be really awesome, like, this will be different, then chances are you'll take away a different outlook on it, and kind of stopping to reassess, where does food come from? How do we get our food? Like, if anything that COVID has taught some people, it should really be that there's a problem with distribution. Because when there was no food, everybody freaked out, and then they hoarded it, and then there wasn't enough for everybody to get food, and so that should honestly kind of make people want to take things back a step to planting a garden, kind of growing your own, at least learning about some of the aspects and appreciating the little local people that do work really hard to bring food, fresh food, not well-traveled food to your plates.
That's cool. I like this mindset conversation that we're having, of when you change your mind about something for the positive, of course, things are going to change for you, which is really cool. So do you grow your own veggies and products, or who do you go to for that?
A lot of food is grown here. There's also a lot of little local heads that help me out. I can't say they're little, but like Great Day Gardens and Sweet Tooth Farms, like Monica, the Bridgewater Farms out in Fontenelle, Iowa, did all of our potatoes this season. That was pretty awesome, getting potatoes delivered to you, so I didn't have to go like physically pick them up from a store. That was amazing. Who else? Be Grateful Gardens was doing mushrooms. We've switched over to Joy Grow for now. Gosh, who else? There's a list of them on the bottom of the menu, but I can't remember all of them right now. But just like a bunch of random local growers and, people who grow veggies. And it's like, cool. You got organic snacks? I'll take them.
Yeah, for sure. Quick moment of love for Sweet Tooth Farms. Love Monica, love everything that she's doing for the community. And I love that you partner with her. Yeah. So let's talk about gardens. If someone is looking to do what you just said of what about starting a garden, what would be a good veggie to start with, honestly? Just like something easy, but willing to inspire you to do more.
Lettuce is fun. It's cooler weather inclined, so that's a good one to start out with in the spring. Peas and green beans for me, I don't know why. They're just always, wow, there's so many of them. And you can grow them up and make like fun little shapes and such. Tomatoes, of course, are my jam every year. It's like, why did I plant so many tomatoes? I do this to myself every time. Like there's not going to be hundreds of tomatoes on one bush, but instead I plant 50 and then they're coming out of my ears. So tomatoes are usually fairly simple and they're fun to grow. And if you don't have space, like looking at containers and pots, I used to call the bakeries and get their 5-gallon icing buckets. And I would use that for like my homemade laundry detergents, or I would drill holes in them and turn them into flower pots, or whatever. And so also it's a way to reduce waste because you're taking somebody else's trash and then turning it into something that you can grow life into or store stuff in. So I tell people, start out simple if you want, or just go all the way in and just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of where I went. It was just like, wow, this is great. There's so many snacks. Pumpkins are fun, but they take up a lot of space and a lot of light, and they'll go everywhere. So if your neighbors aren't really cool with pumpkins being wrapped around their tree, maybe don't start with pumpkins. But I would say like leafy greens. Leafy greens are usually pretty forgiving. They're easy enough to grow, and they're not that expensive when you grow them yourself.
Mm-hmm. Can you share how you expanded from Veggie Thumper to other natural products?
Well, it started out reverse. Like, the crunchy stuff came first, the bus came later. So the deodorants and the skincare line kind of helped to fund the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And it just started out that way. I don't know. Oh, my kid needed deodorant. He was like 7. I thought I was smelling a grown man. I was like, who did not put on their deodorant today? Like, that is unacceptable. But then we get in the car and I'm like, oh my God, the scent's following. And so I lifted up his arm and was like, it's you. I'm so like startled. Like the 7-year-old could smell like that. And so he was really excited about getting deodorant. And it was about that time I was like, okay, there's not okay things in our deodorant. And so I got Tom's. I had a really bad reaction to it. And my like skin was peeling. I couldn't put my arms down. It burned bad. And so I was like, okay. So then I got one of those crystal sticks, and well, needless to say, I smelled like a grown man that just left the gym. And then my kid kept knocking it out of the cabinet on the tile floor, and then it became like sharp shards, and it's crystal. So you're supposed to get it wet and rub it over. You're like, this is not the move. And so I think I was in one of my whatever coding classes, not coding class, it was some web design class, and I'm on the internet like searching, recipes for deodorant. I'm like, you can make deodorant. I'm like, cool. So I just get up. My teacher's like, where are you going? I was like, to Campbell's. I have a project. So several batches later, I finally started figuring out deodorant. I was like, okay, this is just how we're gonna rock. And so it kind of started out with things like that, like making my own skincare, because more I read about what was going into things, I couldn't afford the brands that, I wanted. So I had to figure out how to make them myself. And yeah, it costs more initially because you have to buy all the stuff. But then once you make so much of it, you're like, okay, it washes out. So that's kind of how it started out, as the little stuff over there, or making your own salad dressings, because I'm like, you want how much for the salad dressing? And there's what in it? Like, I don't want that product. And that was a lot of the issue, is trying to find things that didn't have soy and didn't have canola oil in them, which wasn't a lot of things. So then I had to just kind of start making things from scratch, because I used to be super crunchy, like raw, dehydrated snacks. It was, for a while there, it was weird. It was intense in the beginning. Very intense.
I love the general theme of filling your own need.
Yeah.
I dig that a lot. Someone commented, unlearning dairy is also a big deal.
Okay.
I agree.
Wholeheartedly.
What is the most important lesson that you have learned so far in regards to owning and running a small business? Lessons too.
Lessons. I guess I would just say going with the flow and don't give up. Like, if it's meant to be some way, the stars will align and it will happen. Like, they're headache after headache after headache with that bus. Like, I thought I would never get out from underneath every single problem that presented itself, but usually if you step away and just take a moment to breathe and be thankful for what you already have, then you can kind of start to sort through once you've removed all your moments. Then you're like, okay, let's strategize here. And I guess I'm a thinker. Sometimes I overthink, but usually I'll figure out a solution to make things work. So whether it be the iPads, whether it be, the bus won't start, the generator won't start, oh, the water line's blue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's frozen, you name it. I've probably experienced it in some way, shape, or form, but it's just figuring out, going with the flow. Life is too short for me to sit here and get super stressed out. And those are the things that I have to stop and remember. I got my first gray hair. Like, I noticed it a month ago. I'm super excited. Sorry.
Yay!
And so I'm like, okay, I'm doing the right thing because I got one right there. Can't really see it, but it's there and I know that. So anyway, it was just, I would say the biggest lesson would just be going with the flow. Just because one thing goes wrong does not mean to throw in the towel. And the community really does, they support me. They've wowed me multiple times. I'm like, wow, I did not expect that. It was not mentally ready, but grateful, but not mentally ready. And so it's just like, at the end of the day, I know if I have a bad day, there are still people out there that in some way they care. And they've made that clear that they care and that they want to see us, grow, and they support us. And that to me means a lot. So whatever the problems are, for now, I'll deal with them.
Yeah, I love it. So you talked about community, and as an entrepreneur, many times y'all are doing all the roles for your business. Who do you have to rely on as far as like a team? Or is it you're kind of the head of the ship and doing it all and just asking people for help at certain times?
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
I drive the bus. I'm the IT. I don't have to play mechanic as much now. I have, a couple of people that are like, I feel comfortable with them working on the bus. So thankfully there's that. And they're teaching me while, they're repairing things, which I'm grateful for because I don't know how to do them on my own. Right now it's still kind of a lot on me. And there's days that it's just like, I don't want to wear every hat, but it's like, get up, put your hats on, put big orange shoes on and go to the grocery store, get what you got to get and keep it moving. So there's those moments that you just need a second, but overall, I'm grateful to have the skills to be able to do it, or, it would cost me a lot more in other areas, but there's times, in the summertime, it's easily, 95, 120 hours. It's just like, and you need a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that when my crew shows up, now that they have their designated tasks. So it used to be just two of us on the bus all the time. Now it's three. I try and keep three. And then if on the nights that it's a little slower, we try and run with two. And so it's nice just being able to help delegate some of the tasks, and with the Plantsgiving, having other people helping to chop and stuff like that. And, help me get pie crust together. That definitely made it easier. So, I mean, it's just being able to delegate tasks, because after, injuring myself, I realized, like, if I were to die tomorrow, Veggie Thumper would die with me. And that didn't really sit too well with me. I'm like, so I have to be able to have other people that I trust coming in to help do things. And shout out to Amy from Veg Life, because she's helping me on my social media, because I don't always see messages. I don't always see comments. I do not have the app. And so it all becomes one. And then you miss things. And so she'll like go in and respond to something. And then I'll see, I'm like, oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm grateful to have, the people that are willing to help me out and help promote and do the stuff that I'm not great at. Because sometimes I forget, like, oh, you're going out. You should probably let people know that you're actually taking the bus out today. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about social media, because Veggie Thumper is so great. Even maybe if it's not you that's posting it, of saying, hey, this is what's happening. You guys are very transparent. And also, like, you can find us here. How has social media helped grow Veggie Thumper?
That's pretty much it. It's outside of, like when we have like interviews and stuff like that, it's pretty much all social media, or people see a bus and they're just, you know, they're foodies or they're hungry and they're like, oh, what's happening over here? So outside of that, that's it. I don't
Yeah.
advertise. I don't really promote things outside of social media. So I'm grateful to have that tool, even though it's like you don't want to be bothered with it, but at the same time, like, it does get the word out, and then people sharing it, of course, that definitely helps.
Yeah. So for the new entrepreneurs or growing entrepreneurs on here and watching this, what's some advice that you have when it comes to social media? Because I don't know, people get kind of caught up with what to post, what to caption, how often, some sort of aesthetic that has to go with it. What do you think about all that?
In that sense, I don't know. I try to make it a mental note, take a picture of something, because I notice pictures gather more interest versus words, obviously, because people have short attention spans. They really don't like to read. So it's trying to remember daily to take at least something. And I mean, I've got 55,000 pictures on my phone of random things. So obviously I should usually have something that can go along with it. But, making it a point to, at least let people know you're there, you exist, and what you're doing. Keep them in the loop, even though they may not always comment or like it. At least they know you're doing something and you exist. And maybe it'll eventually catch the eye of one person who's like, oh, that's really cool what they're doing. And they'll tell another person. And so it's just that, little domino effect, and trying to be there. I try not to be an over poster, but then again, yeah, I'm not an over poster. That's not my strong suit. Not at all. There'll be days where I'll post like 2 things and then you won't hear from me for a week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm working on that side of it.
Yeah. With your posts, they're very informative, and I like that.
Thank you.
Very much like, here we are, or this is what's happening, period.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you feel that way.
So besides obviously going to the bus and ordering, what are other ways that people can support you, even if they're not into vegan food or they're just, anyway?
Just letting people know we exist. I mean, I'm grateful to have made it, in another season, and hopefully we have many more of them to come. And I mean, being in a parking lot is hard. It's good, but it's got its drawbacks too, because people have to come to you versus me coming to them. And I'm grateful that people do go out of their way to come find us, especially since we're not, trying to hit every section this year just because of the unknowns. And so it's just letting them know we're here. That's really all I can ask, is like liking and sharing so that the visibility stays there and people remember, because, you can kind of fall off, when you take your downtime, which this year I'm not going to fully close operations. We're just going to flip it over, and the window will stay closed because it's a lot warmer in there with it closed than with it open. So, yeah.
Okay. I forgot to ask you this earlier, but with the growth and continued business now, do you have a mentor, or have you ever had a mentor when it comes to growing your business?
I mean, I ask people questions. Dave from Top Bun has been super nice. Like when there's something I don't quite get, I'll ask him a question. But really, this is kind of shooting in the dark. Like, Mike from the Flying Mango and Sue's, they were helpful. Like working in a restaurant in general was helpful, just because things that you see, you're like, definitely not ever going to do that at my business, or definitely not going to let that slide. Yes, I could see myself doing that. And so you had to do checkouts at your job. And when I was a server, and that part, it's just like all this paperwork, so many questions, looking at all these numbers. And I'm like, this is not the fun part. Can I just roll my silverware and go home? And so it's just taking a little bit from each place that I've worked and figuring out how to make it all work for myself. And past experiences, I would say, would be more of a mentor than actually physically having a mentor. I mean, I meant to look into that side of things, and then you get busy. So now it's just kind of me, splashing through puddles right now, sometimes falling on my face, sometimes nailing it. Like, just once you get through a year, it's helpful with Square and stuff, because it tells you, what's successful, what goes, what doesn't, what your busy times are, what's not. But then you think you have it figured out, and then people totally flip the script on you. I'm like, I can't, I don't know. So I'm going with the flow. There we go again. The flow.
Yeah. I dig it. Okay, can you think of a moment during the Veggie Thumper existence where it was just so good, whether it was from a customer or some feedback, or you did something, you learned something that it just gave you a moment and you just sat with it and you were just joy?
I've had quite a few of those, actually. I mean, just from the UPS guy, Todd, who used to deliver my packages. Sorry, Todd. It's a lot. But then he had seen the progression of the bus, while it was, going through its many morphoses, and it was sitting out here on my block at that time. And so then once we were up and going last year, he came by, got food, and he's like, he's like, I thought you guys sold veggies, It's like, well, we do, but they're prepared. He's like, oh. And so I was like, well, go drop your packages off and I'll get you a snack. He's like, let me pay you. I was like, dude, I put you through the ringer. I'm like, just take it, please. It's on me. I was like, at least you're trying something new. And he's like, okay. And so then I came home to my package and there was a note on it. And he, was like, oh my God, it was amazing. It's like, hey. And so then he would stop by sometimes. And I was like, well, here's my number. I was like, I know you don't have a lot of time, so just text me if you're coming through here and, I'll get you a snack. Obviously he's not my UPS guy anymore, but he was a winner. So moments like that, or, the people who are really grateful because they get to experience something that from their past, food and memories. And so watching their face light up when they're like, oh my God, this reminds me of, or kind of reading their mouth. So, pre-mask. It's just those moments where when people show up and there's so much support and you're like, I did not ever expect that. And you're like, I'm super grateful. My heart's, really full right now. And it's just being able to be here for the community, especially in Iowa, because there's not a lot of us doing vegan food. And that kind of stinks. When I want something to eat, I'm like, and that's what I want. But I'm like, I know they have it in California, but that's a really long time to go for a snack. So it's just there's been a lot of them. I can't even go through all of them, but I'm really grateful for people having my back, Franklin Junior High helping me out, all of the different avenues that we've had, people dropping what they're doing to come see what's wrong with the bus so we can get out, like Dan in the blistering sun, getting my water pump on. It's just, there's been a lot of moments this year where I'm like, y'all got my back and I'm grateful. I truly am. If I was a crier, I might shed a tear.
Okay, I'll shed a tear later 100% about this. I am a crier. So someone is asking, as a business owner, are there things you feel are worthwhile to invest in versus trying to figure out yourself, or vice versa? Something you'd say not to invest in that someone should try themselves? Obviously varies, but curious on your thoughts. So certain software, an accountant, etc.
See, I should probably invest in an accountant because it's QuickBooks me and I do my own taxes. So that's on my list, definitely, of something that I'm going to look into, because now it's just, we're hitting that area of like, I don't know what to do. There's different write-offs every year. So that part I would say probably pull somebody else in on. If there's something you really don't feel confident in doing, then hand it off if you think it's going to cause you more headaches later. But usually I'll set aside time to dig into something, and I like to be able to save where I can, because then I'm not passing all of that off. So if I'm paying somebody else, to do this side of the business, because there's some aspects of it right now that I'm not currently passing off to customers, I'm eating it. But there's some things you kind of have to sit there and realize that if you invest in it, then again, it's another expense. So if you're not willing to learn it yourself, or if you really don't have the time, or figuring out, bartering with people who have the time to get things done, then go for it. There's some things that aren't worth the headache or the hassle. Luckily, I had the knowledge of, Illustrator and Photoshop, as part of my degrees and stuff, and having prior knowledge of working with it, that I was able to make my own logo, because I can only imagine what that would have cost somebody else put together all the veggies that are in my logo and had to, you know, play with all that kind of stuff. So there's just certain things that if you cannot figure it out, hand it off. Definitely do, but I'm hard-headed. So there's that. Again.
Okay. So I know that you're not out today. Where will you be tomorrow and this weekend so people can know about it?
We'll be at Ace Hardware tomorrow morning on 48th and University. In the evening, we'll be at Franklin Junior High off of 4801 Franklin Ave. And then Saturday morning, we'll be at 11:30 to 2 at Franklin Junior High. And then next week will be our last week with the window open for average, or not average, but, you know, walk-up orders. After that, it'll switch over to pre-orders and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on getting that webpage up. Another one.
Yeah.
Not deleting anything this time.
Do you have any other final words or advice to share with the people watching?
Try something new. Make sure you stretch and drink your water. And I'm grateful for all of you and your support.
Let me see. Kim here says, so excited to eat from your bus.
Thank you.
Hopefully all of you are able to visit and swing by the bus this weekend. If not, definitely check out the grab and go. But Alyssa, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you. All right. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.